In the heart of the Middle East, a civilization that once ruled empires is collapsing under a single invisible enemy: thirst. Iran, home to more than 90 million people, is running out of water. Not someday, now. Rivers that carved its history have turned to sand. Entire valleys once green with orchards now glow white with salt. Cities sink, lakes vanish, and a nation that survived conquerors and centuries of hardship is now being undone by its own soil, drying from the inside out. Oil once made Iran rich, but oil can't fill a glass. While billions pour into nuclear research and distant wars, the taps inside its own capital are running dry. And what's unfolding here isn't only a tragedy limited to one region, it's a warning for everyone living on a warming planet. What happens to a nation when the one resource that defines civilization disappears? Which collapses first, the economy, the government, or simple hope? To understand Iran's slow death by drought, we need to follow the water, back through history, through ambition, and through corruption. The story begins where the collapse is most visible: the capital itself. At first glance, Tehran still looks like a symbol of modern endurance. 10 million people, gleaming glass towers, constant traffic under neon haze. Yet below that surface lies a city on borrowed time. By 2025, the desert has begun to reclaim it. The once mighty dams that supply the capital have fallen to half their normal levels. Rainfall has plummeted to historic lows. Every morning, residents wake before sunrise, hoping to catch a small surge of pressure in their pipes. Many open their taps to a hiss of air. Pumps fail to push water beyond the second floor. Apartment courtyards echo with the scrape of buckets and the crack of plastic bottles. As temperatures soar past 100 degrees Fahrenheit, electricity grids crumble under the load of air conditioners fighting desert heat. Rolling blackouts leave districts sweltering in darkness. Government offices shorten hours to save power. Water is rationed like gold, sometimes flowing for only a few hours a day. Officials insist relief is coming. New desalination plants, miracle pipelines, modernization projects, yet reservoir levels keep falling. Engineers inside the ministry whisper the same two words again and again: day zero, the moment Tehran's taps run completely dry. But this disaster didn't appear overnight. It was built one dam and one policy at a time, over decades of pride and poor planning. To see how it happened, we have to return to the moment when Iran first believed it could conquer nature itself. The story of Iran's water crisis began not with neglect but with ambition. In the late 1940s, the young Shah, Mohammad Reza Pahlavi, visited America's Hoover Dam, a monumental wall of concrete harnessing the Colorado River. He saw how engineering could turn barren land into life and dreamed of exporting that miracle home. When he returned, Iran entered a fever of modernization. Dams would tame rivers, pumps would transform deserts into farmland, and industry would rise across the dry central plateau. The nation would show the world it could thrive without limits. For a brief moment, it worked. But Iran isn't Nevada. Its water doesn't flow above ground, it hides deep in thousand-year-old aquifers fed by delicate underground channels known as qanats. For more than 2 millennia, these hand-dug tunnels delivered a slow, reliable trickle that allowed cities to survive without draining the earth. When the Shah replaced them with industrial wells, that balance shattered. Sustainable tradition became mechanical greed. Factories and steel mills were built in dry regions like Isfahan and Fars, far from steady rivers. In the 1960s, land reforms replaced feudal estates with small, mechanized farms. Tractors arrived, diesel pumps roared, and groundwater that had taken centuries to form was pumped away in a generation. By the 1970s, Iran looked unstoppable. Petrochemical plants, highways, and dazzling urban skylines. But every dam built for glory-trapped sediment, poisoned wetlands, and diverted rivers that had sustained villages for centuries. The Shah's modernization gave the illusion of eternal progress while eroding the foundation beneath it. And when revolution came, the builders changed, but the obsession with monumental projects stayed. The 1979 revolution promised freedom and justice. What it inherited was a drying land already stretched to its limits. Cut off from Western support, struck by sanctions and the brutal Iran-Iraq war, the new Islamic Republic turned inward. The rallying cry was self-sufficiency. Iran would grow its own food, drill its own wells, depend on no one. Within 3 years, the number of wells across the country more than doubled. dams rose on nearly every major river, often copied from outdated foreign blueprints without environmental review. Whole valleys flooded or vanished under concrete. A nation already thirsty began draining the last reserves that kept it alive. After the war ended in 1988, the government faced another problem: the vast army of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. Rather than disband it, leaders gave its commanders something new to build: influence. They created construction giants under IRGC control, companies with patriotic names but singular purposes: profit and power. Soon, contracts were handed out without bidding. One firm designed the dam, another lobbied for approval, and an IRGC affiliate built it. Oversight vanished, corruption flourished. Rivers were redirected to feed industrial farms owned by insiders. Money circulated upward while aquifers collapsed below. By the early 2000s, hundreds of new dams stood as monuments to this reckless progress. State TV called them miracles of engineering. Scientists privately called them tombstones for rivers. The revolution had replaced one king with many, and each was paid by the liter. Travel across Iran today and you can read the disaster in its landscape. The Zayande Rud, the river that gives life, once ran through Isfahan like an emerald ribbon. Today it's a brown scar through the city centre. Farmers protest along its bed, holding buckets above their heads in silent rage. In the northwest, Lake Urmia, once the largest lake in the Middle East, has shrunk by more than 90%. Fishing ports lie stranded miles from shore. Salt storms sweep across nearby towns, choking lungs and coating crops in a thin, deadly white dust. Across the countryside, farmers desperate to survive drill deeper and deeper wells. 500,000 are legal, countless more are not. Many now bring up only brackish water or sand. Beneath major cities, the ground itself is collapsing. Satellite imaging shows much of Tehran and Isfahan sinking by up to 30 centimeters a year. Roads twist, foundations split, and neighborhoods buckle without warning. By 2025, half of all aquifers were classified as critical, yet new dams continued. Officials insisted that more engineering was the cure for the damage engineering had caused. Nature, patient for centuries, finally began to answer, through heat, through drought, through silence. Then the climate turned against them. Iran's average temperature has risen nearly 2 degrees Celsius in just 3 decades, 4 times the global rate. Annual rainfall has plunged by nearly a third. Water deficits have become permanent, not seasonal. But the crisis isn't purely environmental, it's political. To the east, Afghanistan sits upstream of 2 rivers that feed Iran's parched northeast. Since the Taliban's return in 2021, massive dams have risen along the Hari and Helmand rivers, throttling the flow downstream. The wetlands that once cooled Iran's borderlands have turned to cracked desert. Tehran's response has been desperate. Officials accuse the Afghans of water warfare. Militant skirmishes erupt along the frontier. At home, the government blames the Afghan refugee community, deporting millions under flimsy pretenses, an unspoken attempt to reduce the population that needs water. Each summer grows hotter, each winter drier. Even if peace were possible, climate models suggest Iran will keep warming until mid-century, locking half the country into permanent drought. The enemy now isn't foreign, it's physics. Scarcity has exposed the cracks running through Iran's identity. In Baluchistan, dry riverbeds have fused with rebellion. In the oil-rich west, Arab minorities accuse Tehran of stealing their water to serve Persian factories. In the north, Kurdish and Azeri communities feud over the remnants of Lake Urmia. Every region sees inequality in every empty well. Every drought season deepens mistrust. A few centimeters of water can determine loyalty or revolt. For a state built on centralized authority, the idea of unity is fading as fast as its rivers. The regime calls it foreign agitation. Locals call it survival. And as the peripheries bleed away from the center, the notion of one Iran starts to dissolve back into sand. When leaders speak today, they do so with polished optimism. They promise desalination plants stretching from the Persian Gulf to the mountains, pipelines carrying salvation inland, a rebirth powered by technology. But these visions collapse under arithmetic. The proposed network would cost billions Iran doesn't have and decades it can't spare. Much of any funding would vanish into the same patronage networks that built the failing dams. Engineers call the plans PowerPoint miracles, beautiful diagrams of projects that will never exist. Meanwhile, aging pipes leak 30% of city water before it reaches a kitchen. Wells run dry, infrastructure decays, yet more ceremonies are held, more slogans printed about faith and sacrifice. Each easing of sanctions brings new cash, not for irrigation reform, but for missiles and nuclear centrifuges. Inside universities, scientists who warn of irreversible loss face censorship or exile. Speaking truth about water has become as dangerous as criticizing power itself. And the question no official dares voice out loud grows louder in the public mind. How long until the taps stop for good? Day zero will not strike like a storm. It will creep. One district loses water for an afternoon, then a day, then a week. Tanker trucks appear, then falter. Farms wither to salt flats. Factories idle. Migration begins quietly. Families leaving ancestral towns for cities already collapsing under their own thirst. Economists warn that once this spiral begins, recovery is almost impossible. Food production vanishes, currency falls, and imported grain drains the treasury. Oil may still flow from southern ports, but an empty land cannot sustain its own workforce. Iran's story is unique only in detail. The same equation, overdevelopment, denial, and faith in endless resources, is being written in countries from Egypt to India. The fall of Iran's water system is not just a national calamity, it's a global forecast. At dawn, mothers line up with plastic jugs. Children grow up thinking clean water is a privilege. Scientists watch disappearing rivers on satellite screens like doctors monitoring a dying patient. The government, meanwhile, boasts of reactors stronger than ever, chasing prestige while its people ration life by the litre. A country once legendary for gardens now struggles to keep its roots alive. Its downfall may not come from invasion or revolution, but from silence. The silence of wells running dry. Because every civilization, no matter how powerful, draws from the same well. And if the world ignores the warning etched across Iran's desert, it won't be thirst watching Iran fall next time. It will be Iran showing us our future.